We're going to stop right here because the network says we have to. But Glenn Frey is back with us tomorrow night to complete the conversation. Hope you'll join us too. Coming up later, this is part 2 with Glenn Frey. Talked about a lot of Eagles stuff the first time around. What do you hope people get? What sort of notion or impression do you hope they come away with from your new album, Strange Weather?
First of all, that Glenn's been working hard on a record for a couple of years, and it shows. And secondly, maybe that, you know, what's on my mind is the same thing that's on their minds. I'm thinking about the same things they're thinking about. Global warming, alienation, this world we're living in, and how we got to wake up and change a few things before it's too late.
But I've heard the record, and those themes are presented, but not in some ponderous, I'm going to belch you over the head with this way. The tunes are still listenable, still entertaining.
I like the phrase affable cynicism. I think that sort of is what I was going for.
There was always a point of view, at least I thought, a point of view in the Eagles records, but they weren't overtly political. Did you ever try to be? Did you think that was a missing ingredient? Were you sensitive to the occasional criticism that they weren't political?
Well, you know, I think our obligation in the music business, first and foremost, is to entertain. And then I think education and being topical is something that you address, and I think you have to be very good at what you do to take on those subjects. I think we became more opinionated, you know, as the band evolved. And I think Henley got braver lyrically, I got braver lyrically, you know, the things we decided to talk about, you know, as we were maturing and going through our 20s. I think we got braver with each record and did things more topical toward the end of the band. But, you know, it's not just enough to be topical. You know, I mean, if, how do I say this? Just because it's the way you feel doesn't mean it's a great song. Just because you have a social conscience doesn't mean that you've written a good song to address it, you know, to address the issues. And I think sometimes people need to be tricked into enlightenment, not just have it lay all out, you know, laid all out there like, here's a song I wrote after I watched CNN and I'm going to play it on the piano, nobody talk. You know, you know, I think people would rather have some, you know, groove to listen to and some seductive intro to get them in, and then hear a good singer start telling some story, and maybe they get educated subliminally. But I think the Eagles were plenty topical. Topical, yes. Political, usually no, right? No, I don't think we were political.
Now, there is some political material, some of it subtle and some of it more direct, on Strange Weather.
Yes.
So it's obvious that you've been doing some thinking about some things, and you want to get your attitude and point of view across to people.
Yeah, this is something that's just sort of happened naturally, you know. I mean, I never sit down before I'm doing a record and try to figure out what people want or, you know, figure out what's selling. You know, I mean, I've always just sort of followed my instincts and done songs that I, you know, they came out of me and I record them. But for some reason, the last 2 years, I've decided to say, you know, to make a few statements, or, you know, to maybe play out some love songs under the background of urban blight or under the background of global warming. It's not the issue of the song, but it's more like part of the fabric.
A song off this record like Love in the 21st Century talks about people's alienation and their inability to get into a truthful, romantic or emotional situation.
Well, you know, I think that loneliness is an industry in this country. You know, we're so alienated and so diffracted now that it's hard for people to find people that they can connect with. And, you know, as Love in the 21st Century, we follow this guy as he sort of goes through his search for the perfect girl, or the right girl for him. And he starts out with, like, driving in front of a nightclub and says, this is where to go, look at all of these gorgeous girls. And, of course, you go in there and the guy kind of runs into a very, you know, these girls are, like, ambivalent, like the girls in the Robert Palmer video, you know, like he's dancing with the girl, but she, like, you know, she's not even looking at him at all, you know, and it's like, no, this isn't where it is. And then they get into video dating. The other thing is we want to cut the deal in front. I've noticed, you know, being in Hollywood for 20 years, you know, I've met a lot of people, male and female, who want to do the deal in front. They want to know all about you, your philosophy, you know, how much money you make, where you're going, where you're from, da-da-da-da-da.
Well, viewing these supposed emotional connections as a commodity that you could price and evaluate like you would a car or whatever.
Well, see, I think that takes the guesswork and the discovery out of it. I mean, I couldn't sit there myself and look through a bunch of videos until, you know, I found somebody that seemed like they were right for me. But people are desperate.
It's interesting when you think about a song like that, and then think about some of the songs you wrote with the Eagles, which were romantic and in some cases took shots at cynicism when it came to romance. It's interesting that you yourself say, when you first started to play rock and roll, there was nothing spiritual about it. It's a way to get out of the house and maybe meet some girls.
Did I say that?
I think so.
I wouldn't, that sounds like something I would have said. Well, it's true, you know, but I think everybody, you know, longs for love and longs for somebody special in their life. And, you know, I think everybody's looking for that. And everybody chooses to look in different areas in different ways. And there's no doubt that rock and roll is a great way to meet girls.
Was playing backup for Seeger the first big break of any kind?
He probably is the most important individual in my musical career, in that when I was 19 and Bob was 21, Bob took me under his wing. We used to play a circuit of clubs in Detroit called the Hideouts. And Bob was managed by Punch, and Punch ran the Hideouts. And my band finally got good enough that we auditioned one night and got a job at the Hideouts. And I met Seeger, and Seeger sort of took me under his wing, and he let me come to recording sessions. He took me to the Ramblin' Gamblin' Man recording session and let me play acoustic guitar and sing background on that record in 1969 or 68. We used to drive around Michigan in the car on Woodward Avenue, you know, and I remember one time a Cowsills song came on, and I said, turn that crap off, you know, and he says, no, wait, Glenn, they're on the radio and we're not. Let's listen to how they got there. Bob was also the first person to really encourage me to start writing my own songs. We had a bunch of copy bands in Detroit that were very good, but Seeger said the only way you're going to get anywhere is if you write your own material, and you can do it. And so he really encouraged me a lot. And then I was more than happy. Then, you know, I went to California. The Eagles started out very well, and then we did very good. We did very well.
You think the audience is still there? I mean, record sales for some artists indicate that it is, but are you concerned that it will continue to be there for songwriters of your generation? Because the musical landscape has changed so much, and even the formats of radio stations have changed so much, and at least what your original audience is perhaps doesn't feel as alienated as it once did. They may fondly remember the old songs, but not have as much of a hunger for similar songs today. You worry about that?
No, I don't think you can worry about things you can't control. I think you just, you know, first of all, I never thought that, you know, at 42 I'd still be in the music business. I didn't even think at age 32 I'd be in the music business. But we have now come into the age of adult rock stars. And, you know, I'm quite surprised. We're sort of like the Sinatras of our generation. When I was in my 20s and my parents were in their 40s, they liked Sinatra and Tony Bennett and stuff. And I went, look, you know, I didn't really get it then. You know, but I think if you know, now, I believe so much in the popular song, Bob, you know, that I think if you write a great song, it'll stick around for a long time, and people younger will discover it. Yeah. People older will discover it. And, you know, I think that's very, music isn't too musical right now. So I think when a Don Henley or a Glenn Frey or Paul Simon or James Taylor, and I don't mean to put myself in that, with that class of artist, I just mean to say when someone who is lyrical and melodic and knows, you know, and is not packaged, someone who is a real musician who can sing and play, when we make records, I think there's a format and a place for them, because there aren't that many records like that being made now.
Had some solo hits in the early 80s with accompanying videos, songs like Smuggler's Blues, You Belong in the City, The Heat Is On is another one. Give me your thoughts about those tunes. Well,
Smuggler's Blues is probably, up until Strange Weather, really the only topical song that I had from my first 3 solo albums. But this was, you know, this was a subject that, you know, was coming up a lot, and living in Aspen and traveling around. Needless to say, I met my share of people that were involved in that sort of stuff, and it just seemed right to write a song about it, but it had to be written in such a way that it wasn't glorifying it, but rather just reporting on, you know, what was happening. The Heat Is On is a funny story because I went to the screening of The Heat Is On with Temporary Music, and Irving Azoff, who was president of MCA Records at the time, said, you got to come, you know, you got to get a song on this movie. It's going to be really big. So I went to the screening, and at the screening is Quincy Jones, Richard Perry, the Pointer Sisters, Stevie Wonder. And it's an Eddie Murphy movie. And I, you know, went to the screening, enjoyed the film, but I mean, I walked away and said, Irving, they're not going to have any use for the King of Country Rock and, you know, in this film at all. And so I really left the screening thinking that I wouldn't be doing anything for the movie. Lo and behold, 4 weeks later, my manager sends me a tape, and it's the 4C Faltermeyer demo of this song, The Heat Is On, and they want me to do it for Beverly Hills Cop.
So you didn't write The Heat Is On?
No. And so they sent me the tape over. I said, okay, I'll listen to it. And, you know, it sort of sounded like something me or Huey Lewis would do. You know, it's kind of bouncy, saxophone, up-tempo, rock tune. It was just before Christmas. They were offering me a little money. I did not have my second solo album ready to come out yet. I thought it might be a good idea to keep my name, you know, around or something like that. So, you know, for a little bit of money, I went in, I sang it one day, I played guitar the next day, and I just kind of walked away from it and thought, well, that was nice. And then, you know, 8 weeks later, it was a #1 record. And I never, as I say, you know, never even thought that I would get a song in the soundtrack.
What are your thoughts on the occasional acting bits you've done?
I really enjoy doing that. You know, I think that variety is very important in one's life, and if you just do music, your life can get a little bit boring. So I've really enjoyed the acting jobs that I had. I had a great time on Miami Vice. I got a lot of help in that episode from Paul Glaser, the director, and Don Johnson. And then my biggest thrill was working on Wiseguy for 7 episodes, where I actually had a character who had a lot of dialogue, somebody that we could follow from episode to episode, and I really started to get comfortable. And I guess, you know, just like music, acting is all about being comfortable. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get, and I think the more comfortable you get, then the more natural you are on camera. I really felt like around Wiseguy I was starting to get it a little bit. So I would like to do that again.
Take on allowing your music to be used in commercials. Bob Seger, who's a friend of yours, allowed Like a Rock to be used in a Chevy commercial. I asked him about it. He said that he'd been offered a lot more money for other commercial enterprises. He went with this one because he's from Detroit. He thought it would help the auto industry and therefore, by extension, a lot of working-class people. That was his answer. Another guy whom you obviously admire is Neil Young. Not only doesn't do these things, but mocked it directly. Ain't singing for Pepsi, ain't singing for Coke. Where do you come down in this deal?
Well, I think I don't think it's us against them anymore. And I'm not so sure if you're making millions of dollars as a rock and roll star that you can protect your outlaw image by not doing, you know, commercials. I think it's totally up to the individual what they want to do. You know, for me, I had no problem with it. I think it's just, you know, I think it's obviously you must have written a very good song for people to want to come and buy it. And in the instances that I, you know, did commercials, I didn't have any problems with it. I mean, rock and roll, people who go to rock and roll shows drink beer. They want me to do an old-style beer commercial. I didn't see anything wrong with that. You know, people drink soda pop. I don't consider Pepsi to be the enemy, you know, and maybe you'd even look at it the other way, you know, we're taking their money.
I was watching the Winter Olympics, the late-night show one night, and Pat O'Brien was on, and he had you hooked up. I think your wife, Cindy, was there as well, from Aspen. And what was interesting, you played a song, but also what was interesting was we got to see some of the kids that you work with, whom you bring in, I guess, from around the country to give them an experience that they otherwise would have no access to. You want to talk about that a little bit?
A year ago, my wife and I became involved with this group called an Aspen Grassroots Experience. And we have been bringing disadvantaged young people from America's inner cities and Native American Indian reservations to Aspen for a week of very challenging outdoor activities, which is accompanied with counseling and confidence building. And also we just give them a lot of love. And And it was just, you know, I've been doing charity work for 20 years. Anti-nuclear, political stuff, you know, had many different, you know, attempts to give something back. And I've always sort of been looking for something that made sense for me. And I really enjoyed the feedback. The kids that we bring are between the ages of 8 and 15. And we try to get them before they have dropped out of school, before they're involved in drugs or gang activity, and try to, in some way, give them a glimpse of what the possibilities that life holds. Everybody has turning points in their life. You know, if I hadn't gone to see, if my aunt hadn't taken me to see the Beatles, I may have never decided to be in a rock and roll band. So for these kids, it gives them an opportunity to see that there is life outside of, you know, the ghetto or off the reservation, that there are possibilities if you apply yourself, that although, you know, life is rough, you know, they're not excluded, you know, just because of the situation that they're in now. And we've gotten a great deal of satisfaction working with these kids. I'm back here this week because we like to have a follow-up program. We come back and visit with these kids. So we realize it's not like 1 week in the mountains and then you just send them back to where they come from. And a couple weeks after that, you know, the dream dies. We stay in touch with these kids. We send them birthday cards. We write them letters. We make phone calls. And a couple times a year, we come to New York, go to Denver, and go to Santa Fe and meet with these kids, see how they're doing. And all of these kids, almost to the man, are doing better in school. Parents come to these follow-up meetings and say, thank you, our daughter is talking to us now. Or they're getting along better with their brothers and sisters. You know, there are no bad kids. And the thrust of my charity work over the last 20 years has involved kids, because I think they're victims. And it's something I'm happy to do. I really enjoy being with the kids, too. I think it keeps me young.
So you told me you hadn't done an interview of any length in 3 years, so we sent you out of the box with 2 back-to-back. Now you don't have to do another one for about 33 years.
Well, that would be nice.
Which indicates how much you enjoyed this, I'm guessing.
No, actually, I really enjoyed coming on your show, and I was, when I saw Seeger on the show, is really what turned the corner for me and made me want to come on the show. I had no idea that you were such an audiophile and that you were so into things like songwriting and sort of the magical world of creativity that surrounds it. So it's been a pleasure to talk with you. We'll come back. We'll do a sports segment next year.
Yeah, you know, I caught a clip of you in the booth with Vin Scully at a Dodger fantasy camp. We'll talk about that the next time.
All right.
We're out of here. Glenn Frey, folks. See you later.